right, go ahead and get started. We're going to be a couple of minutes early, but that should be okay. We're called to order the Board of Trustees business meeting. Today's Tuesday, April 30th, 2019. It's currently about 1 minute before 6. Earlier this evening, we had an executive session with our attorney for legal advice dealing with our hydro facilities. Coming out of that meeting, we have nothing to report, but we do need to make a motion to authorize the general manager to execute a review of our CEII reports with AFH, American First Hydro, and for he and our attorney to continue to negotiate with American First Hydro with a goal of getting to hopefully a final contract for our dams.
So moved.
So I have a motion on the floor in a second. Do I hear any questions, comments? All those in favor? Unanimous. All right, item number 3 on our agenda is for a presentation for our fiscal year 2018 annual audit by RKO. We have 2 representatives here this evening from RKO who is going to lead us through this review. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
So good evening. I'm Casey Leonard. I'm here with Parker Madden. So we wrapped up the audit recently. The audit went very, very well, as it has in the past. We put together a little presentation that Parker and I are going to go through, and as we do so, if you have any questions, please feel free to stop us at any point. It highlights some of the more important parts of the financial statements. So if you take a look at the first page, we have a summary of the audit results. So we finished the audit in early April. Our report was dated April 8th. So we've been done with the audit for about 3 weeks at this point. As for the opinion on the financial statements, the district received an unmodified opinion, which means the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. In addition to the financial statement audit, we also performed an audit in accordance with the government auditing standards, what we usually call a yellow book audit. And this is something we usually do. And so here we consider the district's internal controls over the financial reporting process. So we look at all the procedures that are in place that help to ensure that the year-end balances are materially correct. We also perform tests of the district's compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements, and I'm glad to say we had no material weaknesses, nor do we have any significant deficiencies. So we had a clean opinion on the financial statements and a clean opinion on our compliance report. So 2 very good things. We did have a handful of recommendations. I think all of them, I do know all of them are repeats, but I'm going to go through those once we get through the presentation, once we get through the graphs.
Okay, I'm going to jump in now, starting on the net position analysis, FY14 through 2018. Jesus, page 3 if you're using the page numbers. First notable item on here is your net investment in capital assets. This number increased about $250,000 between 2017 and 2018. This is one of the larger increases of any of your net position categories. And what this represents, this is your capital assets, less accumulated depreciation, less the debt required to accumulate or to acquire those capital assets. Now, as you can notice, your net investment in capital assets increases fairly consistently every year. The main driver of that is because you guys are adding capital assets without adding an equal amount of debt. A big driver is your contributed property. Essentially, when the customers are putting in items and then the district takes over a property of that creates a revenue for the district. No debt is acquired. However, they are accumulating capital assets as a result. So that's really the main driver there. Then you have your restricted fund or your restricted net position. This is 100% made up of sinking funds and reserve accounts that are required under your bond agreements. Currently at 2 bond agreements. And you can find a full breakdown of this of the net investment in capital assets and the restricted on pages 15 and pages 16 of the financial statements. That'll give you the full detail. And then finally, your unrestricted net position. This is the amount that does not carry any restrictions. It's fully available for future appropriation. And then the final item that I just want to point out on here, and you may notice, under 2017, there's a little parenthesis saying restated. So the restatement in 2000 that went back to 2017 is a result of GASB 75 was implemented in FY18. GASB 75 is a new GASB that came out, and it's applicable to other post-employment benefits. It essentially represents if you're providing health insurance for employees during their retirement period, even if you're not contributing towards that, if you're just allowing them on your plan, that is a contributor, as well as being a member of Maine PERS. There's group term life insurance, and once again, that works similar to your pension, where the liability is all sitting in a big pool, and they break it out to the members based on percentage of contributions that you represent. You can find all of that information starting on page 19 of your financial statements. That has the new disclosure. At the end of the day, this GASB 75, with a new look at the other post-employment benefits, it's not going to create an increase in cash outflows for the district. This is truly just to meet the reporting requirements and to essentially report consistently across all of the municipalities. So once again, page 19, you can find your disclosure, which lays out benefits as well as the amount of liability that the district's required to recognize.
So that's on the restated. What's the difference, the big difference between 17 and 18?
As far as from the 690 up to the 1.4,
Yeah.
we'll get into that. I have a slide for that. It's about
Okay.
4 slides away, but it's essentially profit for the district. Revenues were higher than expenditures for FY18. Okay, your revenues, and you're gonna notice this is gonna be a similar trend on your expenditures as well. Saw a significant increase in FY18. This is the result of the rate increase that was experienced, I believe sometime in February of 2018, that was in effect. And then you also actually saw an increase in your kilowatt sales. So the rate increase combined with additional usage is really driving your electricity and your R&S. Transmission revenues, same deal, increase as a result of the rates and the kilowatt sales. And it's important to remember your electricity, your R&S, and your transmission, those do not generate profit. Those will match exactly to the expenditures as required by the PUC reporting. Then on your delivery side, this is kind of where you can generate a little money for the district because the expenditures do not directly match the revenues. And on the delivery side, the increase in the kilowatt sales really drove up an increase in the revenue. Next item on here that's fairly significant is your miscellaneous revenues, increased about $85,000. The primary driver here is the sale of the tree trimming truck as well as the associated equipment that went along with that. So that came through as a miscellaneous revenue for 2018. And then finally, your capital contributions went from $241,000 to $216,000, about an increase $25,000. Primary driver is just strong economy, and that's really going to, as long as the economy stays strong, your capital contributions will stay strong. As the economy starts to go in the other direction, you'll notice this number will come down as well. Going on to the expenses, 2018 versus 2017. Purchase power, R&S, and transmission, as I mentioned, those are going to match your revenues. That's there's no profit in those numbers. So the increases are the same as they were for the revenues. Another notable item on here is your operations. Your operations increased about $84,000 between 2017 and 2018. What the primary driver here is, this is kind of a reordering of how the expenditures work for the tree trimming. Prior, your tree trimming would be partially in operations. General administration would have picked up benefits, as well as a piece would be in depreciation for depreciating the equipment. As a result of going to contracted services, the entire amount is now in operations. So you see an increase in your operations, and then if you look down, you actually see a decrease in your general administration, where now that's where the savings come from through the reduced benefits, through the outsourcing. And then finally, probably the oddest item on here is amortization of change in net pension liability, a negative $120,000. So what this represents is that net pension as well as the OPEB liabilities combined decreased a lot in on their valuation date. They are all valued 6/30/17 about 6/30/18 about 6 months before you guys close your books. That was a strong period for the stock market, and as a result, it drove down your liability because they're heavily invested. As their performance does better, the overall liability decreases. So that actually increased your net position by about $120,000 by reducing those liabilities. As you know, the pension side has been in effect for a couple of years, so don't expect it to go down every year. It's very likely that in the next valuation it'll go right back up where it was.
Thanks, Parker.
Do you want us to hold questions till you're done, or do you want?
If you have a question, I'll take it.
Yeah, I do. The electricity revenues or sales and the purchase power expenses are identical, right? But I thought that in the purchasing of power, that our rate is a little higher than what we pay in order to begin to get us to a cash position that we need to be at.
That is correct. So a deeper look at your balance sheet will reveal where that offset is. Does everyone have the financial statements?
Yes?
Yeah. Choose a thicker bound one.
Yes.
Everyone turns to page 7 to start. About halfway down your page, you have a line, deferred purchase power and transmission. Essentially, that is the amount of profit that would have been generated. However, when reporting for utility, you're required to defer that profit, because what it does is it essentially will smooth the ups and downs throughout the year. So inevitably, this rate increase will start to go in the other direction, where the district's starting to lose a little bit of money. And then this $87,000 will kind of go in the other direction and become more of a credit than a liability. Or than
So
a
it's
debit.
there, it's just in a deferred line.
It's just in a deferred line.
Matt's not gonna let us start losing money.
No.
No, it's purely accounting is why that it's not working.
As far as where it is. I get it. Thank you.
Okay, getting on to slide 6, your change in net position. As Duffy mentioned, your overall net position increased quite significantly in 2018, went up about $1 million. This is driven by a couple items. First, and most notable, is the total increase in kilowatt sales that drove a large portion of your increase in net position through your delivery. Another item on here is to remember is that the post-employment benefits decreased by about $120,000. That's also increasing your net position. And then there's also $240,000 of contributed capital assets. Once again, that's really increasing the net position because there is no offset on contributed capital asset, just the assets coming onto your balance sheet. And then the other notable item on here is, as you can tell, from 2014 through 2018, overall net position has been increasing. Your net position is always just a good indicator as to the health of the organization, and that number increasing every year is a sign that operations are staying on the positive side and there's no major outflow that is causing you guys to lose a significant portion of your net position each year. Going on to the operating revenue distribution, 2014 through 2018. Most notable item on here is that everything is within 2% of each other. That's a good sign that no big surprises happen throughout the year. The major mover for the year was the transmission, went up about 2% as a percent of total. And that is just driven to the fact that the transmission rate increase as a percent was higher than the percent increase on the RNS and the electricity. And that's just, so as that one increased faster than the RNS and the electricity, it essentially represents a larger piece of the total revenues. Now it's important to remember that these are as a percent of all the revenue, so electricity as a percent of every bit of revenue that you collect. So we're not saying that electricity only went up by 1% or went down by 1% as it may appear in here. We're just saying that its portion of the pie went down by 1%.
So if I just might quick clarify is we did rate increases, but we were also compounded by the benefit of the 500,000 additional kilowatt hours in 2018. So everything kind of spiraled in the right direction.
Yep.
And why is this important to have in a table like this, to see the percentage of our pie that our revenues make up?
The major reason why we're presenting it as this is mostly just to give you guys an idea as to what each category is representing, as this does show, and then doing it comparatively, it kind of gives you an idea of the trends over time. Is the electricity outpacing any of the other categories, and then if a category was significantly outpacing another category, it may give us a hint as to, we might need to do a little more investigation. Why is this revenue growing so much faster than the others?
Okay.
This next slide is your operating expense distribution. Same idea as the last slide on revenues, except this is related to expenses. What I did first was I looked at your last year and I just kind of compared it to here because I'm looking for items that are moving erratically between the years. And I was happy to report that in FY18 compared to 17, all the categories were within 2% of the prior year. So that means there's no major shifts. Some of the items that did shift most significantly, as you'd imagine, your transmission costs increased about 2% over the prior year. Operations increased about 1%. That's your tree trimming getting moved totally into your operations. And then your general administration decreased compared to the prior year, and that's also related to the tree trimming getting outsourced. And then finally, your non-operating expenses is at 0.04%. In FY17, that was about 1.6%. And the reason why that decreased so much is because of the negative expenditure for the net pension liability. Are there any questions in the slides that anyone else has? And if not, we'll go into the management letter comments.
Do you also have an analysis that shows us, for example, maybe I just missed it, the regional network service, for example, how it's trended as a cost over the years, or are we only tracking it as a percentage of the pie of expenses?
With this graph, it's
Understood, this graph.
I don't. Well, essentially, because the revenues and expenses match each other. I mean, you could use the revenue side, but we could also produce something similar to this for the expenses if that's something you guys would like to see in the future.
I'm not asking for that.
Expenditures.
Yeah. I just, from a business perspective, it seems like what we want to be tracking is the changes year over year or over a succession of years in the actual costs of our expenses, as opposed to their share of the pie, although it does help. I mean, especially for the revenues, I don't think there's much relationship between what it costs us to deliver and what it costs us to buy electricity. So it isn't like a great big aha moment if we see this pie chart and it changes, because they aren't even really related in the marketplace. One is related to labor and operations and the expense of poles and wires, and the other is the market for electricity, right?
If that's something you want, Matt can provide that to you.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm just thinking from a management perspective.
Yeah.
You want to know how our costs are trending, more probably than how they are as part of a pie.
Right, absolutely. We definitely keep track of them.
Okay, I'm done, thanks.
So the other thing we're going to do is go through our recommendations, and that's in our management letter. Actually, it's in our compliance report. So it's. I know you have many different documents in front of you, but it's a thinner, I believe it's bound document. It's called Reports Required by Government Auditing Standards. And the comments start on page 3. And so these are all 3 of these are repeats, so I believe everyone here has already heard these. So the first one has to do with updating the depreciation calculation annually. Currently, depreciation is budgeted. The district records a certain dollar amount for depreciation expense each year. We would like to see that that's based on the estimated useful lives of assets. I think this is an issue that everyone's aware of. It sounds as though the district is working towards attaining a software program that would do that type of tracking. I don't know if there's been any progress since the comments here, but
We have attained it. We are working on defining the parameters of the capital assets, as well as the first part will be work order tracking and time. Second part will be computerizing our inventory and our assets. And then as those come together, it'll be a natural byproduct of the program we have that will be able to accurately update our depreciation. So
Yeah.
that we are headed in that direction as quickly as we
It took us 10
can.
years to get there.
Exactly.
it's a process.
I've been here 10 years and that's been there for the 10 years. So.
We're
Yeah.
hoping, I can't promise you next year, but I'm hoping that next year the inventory one hopefully will be gone.
Yeah.
And then if not next year, the year after, the capital the depreciation will go away.
Yeah.
We're hopeful.
Yeah.
GIS technology
Yes.
that we covered in 10 years ago.
It's all actually, kind of hand in hand. The final comment has to do with computerized capital asset detailed in maintaining that, for greater efficiency and recording accuracy. Put it into an individual program. So it sounds as though you're gonna address comment 1 and comment 3
Yes.
at the same time, which is good. And then the other comment has to do with segregation of duties, and this really has to do with Matt being involved in so many different procedures, so many different processes here. And this is very common for most governments in the state of Maine. The state of Maine, most governments, whether it be your local school district, your local town, or a governmental entity like the district, they run pretty bare bones. And so, when you're not able to take accounting transactions and spread them over different employees, that means that there's a greater risk of fraud and there's a greater risk of errors. And not that either have occurred, but there's a greater risk that those things can happen. And so there's a few things we recommend. We recommend when you're talking about liquid assets like cash, you always try and have good controls. You always work to have good controls. We also recommend that management and the board review financial information on a regular basis. I know I've mentioned in the past, there have been numerous instances where board members start looking at financial reports and they say, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. And they start asking questions, and it turns out the finance director has gotten away with $100,000 in the last year. So there's certain things as board members and as management you can really help to mitigate some of the risks that exist here. So, and if you look at the, again, management responses, it talks about some of the ways that management is trying to address some of these issues, and I think they're all very good steps. I think you're probably doing exactly what you should be doing with the number of employees that you have. We never recommend going out and hiring 10 employees to make this comment go away, but as your auditors, I do need to make you aware that there's some additional risk because you do have so few people in your finance office. So, are there any questions on that one? Well, I think that was pretty much everything we had. Happy to answer any other general questions related to the audit or financial statements.
There are no other questions. I'd just like to finish by thanking Matt for taking a significant portion of his time while we're here. And Matt has been, the entire time we've worked with him, including this year, very timely on getting us information. He gets us in and out of here fairly quickly. And kudos to Matt, did a good job. Any kind of boring audit is a good audit, as they say.
They thrive on boredom.
Kudos
do.
to management for
Right.
doing a good job here this
Yeah.
year.
And I think Matt and Todd have both been working diligently to get us into a much better cash position than we've been in the past. Things are definitely going in the right direction, so
One of our jobs.
we're happy to see where we're going.
Thank you.
Still got a little ways to go, but we're getting there. Does anyone else, Dan, do you have any other questions or Bob?
Do we ever find out what the story is about not charging for electric as an expense for KLPD's electric?
That's PUC rule that we just net. We pay for everything that, we pay for everything that customers don't pay for, so by default, it's an expense that ends up getting paid for through the ratepayers' rates. So there's something known as, load loss, line loss. So what we're sending to a transformer is actually, industry is typically 5%. So we're already on the losing end of 5% of line loss. And
So you just attribute the electricity here to line loss?
not here. We don't do that for here.
Oh, so how do you write this up?
But as a district as a whole, we don't really write it off.
How do you expense it? Or do you expense it?
Go ahead, Matt.
Thanks.
I know Dan wanted to talk to you, Matt,
Why
so.
is it, while you're at it, why do we charge for electric on the hydro? So, why do we expense the electric on the hydros? But
Yeah,
one is.
so your two questions are really kind of one question. So
Okay.
as Todd was saying, what we purchase is not what we sell. There's a gap there. And part of that gap is what the hydros use, what this building uses, and what we lose in line loss. And so that gap gets expensed through the balance sheet, as Parker was mentioning. It's that account that's used to true up what we pay with what we collect.
Deferred part.
Exactly,
Okay.
What did you say, Dan?
Deferred.
the deferred part. Yep.
Okay, I got you. Thank you. Too big you to figure it out.
Any other questions?
Yes, while you raised it, are those costs going down or are they going up?
We made a very significant
Since they're hidden.
decrease. We ended the year, we brought it from 567,000 to 85. And so this year will be a year where we'll be able to throttle back the rates so that we're not in a over-collected situation. We've been under-collected for so long, and that's why we had to temporarily raise the rates.
So as soon as that becomes an over-collection problem, we'll adjust the rates accordingly so that our ratepayers will see a benefit of us catching up with what we're doing.
Okay, my question, that's great, that is great. My question was sort of a little different since we don't have a line item for the electrical expenses that the district actually spends. Do you track it in such a way, because of the way you account for it, it's hard for us as a board to know if we're being efficient and driving our cost of electricity to power this office, to do the other things that we do down, rather than just, oh, it's free to us, let's just.
Yeah, so I do show it every month on the financials, not only our cost here, but also the cost for the hydros. So there's
It is there.
I call it
okay.
out on that.
All right, that's what that is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
We
you, Matt.
installed 300 LED.
And I know you're doing it.
Fluorescent
I just-
bulbs.
You should get some credit for it.
That was out in an odd manner right there, I just noticed.
Portion of it though.
Yeah, that's odd, I've never seen one do that.
So, okay, any other questions for RKO or Matt or Todd?
You're free to go.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Nice socks, Parker.
Thanks.
Have a great evening, drive safely.
Yeah.
We'll see you next February.
Yeah.
Very quick.
Yeah.
See you, Casey.
I'll bring the snow with me.
Oh, yeah, you always
We're
do.
doing good or something.
Right. Yeah, I think that's our quickest audit report that we've had over the years.
We just don't understand it for once.
That can't be it.
Thanks, Tom.
Item number 4, board review of the March financials. Matt,
I have just a few comments for March. The first being that we had about 1 million kilowatt hours more in sales than we did in 2018, and that drove our revenues accordingly. And then on the expense side, we were below budget in all of the lines, and I had a couple of notes to explain that. So customer accounting collection is down about 4,800. That's mainly in mailing costs of sending the bills out to our customers.
because they're going electronic now? Or?
That's part of it, but the way that we're billed from our vendor, the timing can be a little hard to catch up on. So it looks like we had a little bit more last year, but overall, we should see a reduction in that at the end of the year. And then in administration, we were below budget by 13,000. I've broken out each one of those drivers, and other expense was pretty flat. So the flyover for the month is increased sales and decreased expenses, mostly due to timing issues.
Okay.
I also had a request from the last meeting, I forget who asked for it, but I've included the solar revenue and expense as a separate line on the P&L, so you can see how it's going.
From the plant in West K.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, from the solar farm.
And is it going in line with what the projections were?
Well, I think we need a little bit more time, just because we had annualized our expectations for the thing, and so we needed to keep cooking a little bit until we can know.
Last month was the first full month of operation.
That's true too.
We'll
Yep.
need 3 months to at least quarterly be able to extrapolate where we're gonna be. But it seems to be producing what they anticipated.
Any questions on the statement of revenues, page 2?
Where does our demand charge appear in these statements?
Because we have a full service contract with NextEra, it's incorporated in the electrical, the energy expense. You have energy R&S and L&S,
Understood.
and it's
But it changes every year. It's not a fixed rate. It's dependent upon our peak and so on.
well,
So
Yep.
do we track it as a separate number somewhere?
we don't.
They quantify it for us each
Yes,
year
We
and
certainly
then
do.
Each month.
and each month.
Yeah.
So it's,
For
yes,
what it's
it's-
worth, I think it would be useful for the board to know what our, I know you tell us when it's a lump sum, but I think it would be useful to see that because it's one of the things we're gonna be targeting, I think, as we try and manage our system to reduce the cost of peak. I mean,
yeah, we
not to
can,
create more work, but
no, we can show you the invoices from NextEra and so that you can track where that's going and then
or maybe it's just
The peak-
broken out
it's
as
the
an
peak days.
as a stat in the expenses. I don't know, whatever way.
I can add a line, that's no problem.
Yeah, okay.
Statement of financial position?
Please remind us when our bonds are completely paid off.
2022
I was
for,
gonna say 2023.
you're right, that last payment is due 2023 for the 1983 bond. The 2007
The
bond.
07, it's gonna chug along for a bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, delinquent accounts.
I did have a note here. At the time that I printed this report, we had our large commercial customer that I mentioned last month. Their bill was still outstanding, but I'm happy to report that they've paid and they've gotten all caught up. So it was $21,200. So if I back that out of that 174, our percentage of outstanding bills to the revenue, it drops to 19.43. So it's relatively in line with where it was last year.
Anybody have any other questions on this page? Past due accounts, days of cash all.
Yep, so if we factor out our kind of board restricted cash, we have 61 days in total. But kind of in reality, we really have, 40 days for operations because we've been putting money aside for capital projects. Yep. So we're making some very good progress towards our goal of at least 90 days.
And hydro. Everyone good on this? Anything else on that? All right, anything else, Matt?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 5, review and approve of the March 26, 2019 meeting minutes. It's more of a formality now, isn't it?
Pretty much. Gotta have you guys approve something, at least every meeting.
You fix that, right?
Yes, I fixed that. It erroneously said April 3rd and it should have said April 30th.
So, the meeting minutes, was it just, we don't have it in the paper, it was on the...
No, I typically don't put them in it's in the Dropbox, but I didn't print them out.
Does anybody have any questions on those?
No.
I think they're pretty downsized now, you can't really...
Yeah, right, exactly.
So, all right, motion to approve those. Is it something that we can,
It's probably something we can eliminate the approval because it's so simple. Dan and I can just back and forth. If Dan catches anything and then we can sign off, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
yeah, because it seems pretty minute now until you even go through the process with how we changed it.
I can do that.
So, board consideration of Water Street land swap proposal.
So I'll just give you an update. Mr. Scontris did have, let's see, who's the river? Livingston Hughes did this, are the surveyors they're dealing with. So you can see on this map, if folks want to look. You have the so I'll show the people in the crowd. So when you exit Kennebunk Light and Power District's parking area, if you go out the back way by the United Way, there's a deeded right-of-way that allows ingress and egress through that parcel. The property owner of this parcel here with the orange, he owns this whole strip. These are known as spaghetti lots. They're illegal now, but back then they were allowed. He's been parking in our gravel driveway forever. And we've known it, he's known it. It's just something that everybody looked the other way on. The previous owner of these parcels wasn't really interested in doing a land swap because he didn't want to give up anything. He just wanted to have this piece. So what Mr. Scontris has asked is if the district would allow us to swap There's 0.3 acres here with frontage on Water Street where they're currently utilizing, and swap with us 0.3 acres of the back lot of their parcel. So KLPD will retain, there's this rectangle here, KLPD will retain to this red line and then gain additional land in the back of our building. We're currently parking here and on their property, and our pole top rescue, we have a pole set in the back of the property so that when they do training, we train right here on site. That pole is set on their property. So it's been through code enforcement. There's no need to change anything ordinances wise. Preliminary survey is done. If the board tonight will authorize me to execute a deed, or authorize me to sign a deed that allows the district to effect this change, that's all that'll happen moving forward. Is we'll swap deeds. They'll have Mr. Scontris or whoever buys this will have this parcel, we'll have this parcel, and it'll be a done deal.
Do you still have access to Water Street?
Yes.
Yes. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this? We went over this last month too, so, yeah, Jay.
Just a concern to make sure that this isn't something, because it has to do with our property, do we need a vote on this of the town?
No, we do not.
Because it's
Not
not,
necessary to the discharge of our duties. It's just it's a piece of our property.
okay. No further.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that, to authorize the GM to execute a deed for the land swap.
Second.
All those in favor? So
Thank you.
Board review of the 2019 district-wide goals.
You missed one.
Oh, I did, I just crossed it off, I'm sorry, back up. Item 7, Ross Road Reconductor Update.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna let you.
The Ross Road Reconductor update, anybody that wants to read it, there has been a delay in the issuance of the RFP. As we went through and realized that we were using air brakes, we were using reclosers, we were considering interrupters, we looked at the cost holistically as to what would be more appropriate for the district to do. One thing that kept ringing true and true was vacuum operated reclosers, which is something that has no maintenance, there's no fluid in it. It's been used for years, everybody still uses them. So for a cost savings, a resiliency savings, just for it worked much better. We made some changes, so we'll be using less expensive but more accurate and more effective vacuum operated reclosers as opposed to air brakes. We'll still have the visual open, we'll still have everything we need. And then it was just the wording of everything. We had to make sure we had all the wording correctly. So the RFP was issued today. The board has the option of authorizing me to award the bid to the bidder that's in the best interest of the district, as you do sometimes with vehicles, or at the May meeting, I can bring the bids to you so the board can award at our recommendation. That's completely up to you. If anybody wants to review them, this is the scope of work, this is the construction of the definition of prices, and then this one here is the construction specification list. It lists everything that they're going to be doing for us, how they're going to do it, what they're going to use. This hit the street today. I asked for bids to be back on May 17th. I would anticipate we're going to get 5 bids because we've spoken to 5 contractors who are very interested in the job. So it's up to the board. We've kind of eliminated we had a little bit of a timing matter because of the wire. It takes 9 to 10 weeks for the wire to be made. We spoke to the vendor, and the vendor said we can order the wire the length we need with no specific lengths. In 3 to 4 weeks, the manufacturer is going to contact us and say, you missed something here. We need to know what the lengths are you want these cut at. So that gave us an extra 3-4 weeks. So now we're all set with timing if it is the board's interest to wait till the May meeting to issue that. But we're on track. All the poles have been set that needed to be set, and Asplund has been through and cut most of what needs to be cut for that reconductor, with the exception of one large pine tree and one large oak tree near the nursing home at the very beginning of the Ross Road, because as we were that's another delay here. As we were planning this project, I got a call from Chris Osterreiter from the town and said, hey, by the way, we're gonna widen Ross Road in 2020. We're looking at widening Ross Road and paving shoulders for bike lanes in 2020. What can you do to help us? And so what we did was we figured out where the right-of-way is, and we moved, the poles that we were moving, we moved as far out of the right-of-way as we possibly could so that the town can now widen Ross Road should they decide to do it when they determine. So it was the only additional cost was 2 large trees that need to come down, and I'm gonna talk to Chris and Mike about whether or not the town's willing to reimburse us for a portion of those trees having to be removed. So we're ahead of that job. We don't wanna have Summer Street happen all over again, so.
Right.
So that's where we're at on the Ross
So
Road.
what's the board's preference with the bid? Does the board want to just let Todd take care of it? Does the board want to be more involved in it?
I prefer to hear a rationale unless it unduly slows things down.
I don't, now that we've got the wire issue taken care of, it won't slow things down considerably. The bid date's 5/17, so it's 2 weeks, a week and a half after that, so I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. So let's plan on bringing it back.
All right,
Anything else on that?
nothing else on the Ross Road.
Okay. Now let's go on to review of the 2019 district-wide goals.
Yes, this is the draft district-wide goals as proposed by the town manager tonight in no particular order. Substation and load shifting. I'd like to see the Ross Road project completion. That's anticipated in the fall of 2019. We are now already working on compiling the Mill Street Reconductor project preliminary work. Depending on what it costs for Ross Road, we'll have funds to at least jumpstart Mill Street in the fall. We're going to continue to consolidate circuits. 7 and 10 are going to get consolidated so we can remove some additional load from Water Street. Obviously, the whole goal of all of these projects we're doing is to reduce the load on Water Street. So we'll continue to consolidate, and we're looking at the Water Street substation project to be defined and proposed for bid in spring or summer of 2021. That could actually move back depending on if we have another good year and if the projects don't cost as much as we think, we'll be able to get into that planning phase. But part of all these shifting, we're in very close coordination with SGC and the engineers, and so they're aware of what's going on, which is helping them to further help us plan what we need at Water Street when we do need to replace it. So that's one goal, or 4 goals, depending on how you look at it. Full requirement service contract is another. Issue an RFP for the full requirement service contract. Secure a supplier for our load beyond 12/31/20. And then additional services to be included would be long-term planning, strategic planning assistant, load reduction, and cost savings. I'm hoping to have that RFP to the board. I said this month. Ross Road took a lot of time, so did Hydros. I'm hoping that in May the board will have that, and we will be in very good shape. Even if this RFP, if we secure someone by December of this year, we'll be in good shape to have new supply in place prior to the expiration of the current contract.
Okay, before we go too much further, does anyone have any comments on the substation and load shifting, on those proposals, on where we're at, it's pretty much been going along with what we've been talking about for the last few months anyway, so we're there. And Bob, you're good with the substation, Water Street substation, and we're working along with that?
Yeah.
Under the full requirement service contract? So everyone good with where Todd's going with this?
Maybe this is the place to raise some questions, although I don't know it's specifically related to the contract, if I could. And I don't see it further down the goal, so the question would be, when and how will we be looking at the percentage of clean renewable energy in our portfolio, and what impact that might have on cost either way? And I guess, in tandem with that, but it's a little different from the full requirements, but while I'm mentioning it, are we going to begin to move towards goals of more locally generated renewable power? And so those would be the 2, since I mentioned renewable.
Yep. I can answer those now. So I said in the goal it says full requirement service contract, but the issue RFP should be for the load management and reduction, as we've been discussing, to have a consultant that'll work for us. That that is the additional services to be included for that person. And I've spoken to 2 or 3 different people who are interested in bidding on our needs. And top of the discussion is always, is your board interested in going all green? Is your board what is the interest in reducing load? How do you plan to do that? And your final one, I'm missing one, Jay.
The storage kind of.
Local production.
Yeah, and local, so those are all part of the larger conversation. You'll be able to provide
More energy
input.
independence.
Yep, absolutely. So when I show you the RFP, we can refine it from there, that the board is, somebody has an
So you
interest
see
in X,
that
Y,
as
Z.
related to this RFP?
Absolutely, that certainly is.
Okay, thank you.
Which would also include looking at storage and stuff. Or is
Correct. Yep, any kind of, ways to save us money and energy.
Either there or somewhere else, at some point, we want to keep thinking about how we can promote energy efficiency as well.
Yes.
I know we have Efficiency Maine, but I think we have some ways that we could educate our customers better.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
The next goal is to present the vehicle replacement plan to the Board of Trustees for implementation in late 2019. It'll be part of the budget, and then we'll start on this project in 2020 to be able to start phasing out and phasing in vehicles. I'll have a full plan to the board on that for the budget this year.
Is that gonna be, what about the rest of the capital stuff? I mean, is there,
There will be,
because we haven't really looked at a,
right, for the next budget cycle. So this budget cycle, we just asked for money and then told the board what we were gonna do. At this budget, my plan is to have at least 3 to 5 year plan of what we'll need to expend money on so that we can start a longer term planning
yeah,
process.
because yes, I would like to see a bigger picture
Yep,
capital
absolutely.
plan. I mean, you coming to us every year and saying, oh, we're gonna buy this year, we're gonna buy that this year, is all well and good, but we're not seeing the big picture, we're not
Exactly.
seeing all the assets, we're not seeing,
Yep.
we're not seeing down the road where we're going. So you're asking us to authorize a short-term capital
Yep.
without seeing the big picture.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
Totally agree.
Which leads to the next one is a parking lot resurfacing plan to the board. That's a project that I've been banging around for a while.
my point,
Exactly, so we've got things like that that need to be addressed.
right, not that we don't wanna do them, but we just.
No, it just, we haven't had the capital to do it.
Well, that, we just don't,
We don't see the big picture.
we're
Yep.
not seeing the big
I'll show
picture.
you the big picture. Responsibly increase KLPD reserves and improve the bond rating for the future issuance and work to reduce energy rate to our customers. Focus on hydro assets, continue to upgrade assets for improved resiliency, and to implement course and GIS work software for asset values, useful life, focusing on depreciation and inventory accuracies.
I got a question.
Yeah,
About, during the last couple of years, we've had some conversations about our commercial industrial customers in particular, and trying to get feedback from them, more qualitative feedback about how we're doing, what they need, are there partnership opportunities, et cetera. And it doesn't have to be a goal as far as I'm concerned, but it's a question, maybe it should be a goal. How are you thinking about that?
Okay. I don't have an answer right now, but I can answer you.
Yeah. What do you think will get the depreciation also?
That depends. We don't want to implement the program too quickly, because failure rate. That's where failure rates come from on these kind of softwares. There's up to a 75-85% failure rate if you try to roll them out too quickly. I'm hoping by the end of this year we'll have a better handle of our inventory and inputting all of what we have out there. We have a lot more information that's not being utilized, so how old things are, how long they've been there, what they cost when we bought them. Once all of that is loaded into this new software, it's kind of a byproduct of that to be able to generate a report that will give us useful life, costs, what it's still worth, things like that. So if not this year, if not 2020, at the beginning of 2020, then it would be toward the budget October-ish is what we're hoping, if it all rolls out properly. We've got a lot of hope riding on this because we've seen some really good things come out of this program from Corson.
Very nice.
Yeah, we're working on it.
I'd like to see a goal on there on the fiber optic
Okay.
I know we had this
Yes.
conversation a while back and we missed an opportunity.
I'm meeting Thursday morning with the technology committee of the town of Kennebunk, and it's a subcommittee, and I've been included in those meetings, so the town is now interested now that,
Right.
the ship has sailed.
Because I've talked with some people at the town, there seems to be some interest on the
Yep.
town's side as well to help with some financing if
Yes.
needed.
What would the goal be then, Duffy? What are you looking for? Just
Fiber optic.
coordinating with the town, is that the goal, or?
Well, I think it's another revenue opportunity for us if, we're gonna have to do a study and see where we're at. But to provide the fiber optic throughout the town, to provide the better internet service for everybody. And it may be another revenue source for us that we, just like they can purchase their power from us, a customer can then purchase their internet from us as well through the fiber optic through.
And even in the simplest scenario is we get pole attachment revenue from all of them, but there is a lot more in it that we could potentially be gaining revenue from.
I mean, there's a bigger picture there, we
Yeah.
just have to look into it and see what's.
So are you thinking the goal is to continue to collaborate with the town to figure it out, or is there a bigger, a more specific goal than that?
No, I think to collaborate with the town, I think.
Okay.
The town has interest and they're hearing from their constituents that they want this, and the town has got a little appetite right now.
Yep.
And that possibly they're willing to help, with some of the funding to do the research and see what it's gonna take to get there.
Yeah.
So that we have the answers that we need to say, yeah, we can do it, no, we can't do it. But
Correct.
I think if we can do it, it would be a huge benefit to everyone, our residents, our business community,
Absolutely.
everyone. So, and our
Absolutely.
district. Does anyone else have anything else that they would like to add to the goal list? So I think everything that is on here right now is things that we have in the fire already, without getting in too deep and not being able to meet the goals. That's what we've had the problem with in the past.
Yeah.
Is we seem to pile them on and with the unrealistic outcome.
Are we going to see a final, or do you want us to approve this now and?
Yeah, if we're good with this, I'd like to approve this now and
I move to approve these goals as with the amendments that we discussed, including the renewables and the full requirement service, adding the fiber optics and the capital plan.
all those in favor? Okay, so Todd, once you rewrite this, can you just
Send it to you.
send it to me, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
General Manager's Report, Summer Street Project,
Is done.
e-billing and online CC payments.
E-building,
Don't need any more.
e-building, we have 1,100 registrants. As of yesterday, for the month of April, we collected $71,400 in credit card fees. So year to date, we're at $194,485, which is
Additional revenue.
an additional revenue and also an avoided cost that would, unfortunately, for the customer, we're passing that fee on to them, but it's a fee we don't have to eat.
Right, but they're willing to pay that fee, so that's.
Apparently in spades.
Right, it's a convenience fee.
Absolutely.
195?
I'm sorry?
195?
195.
So, but we're not really seeing a shift yet on our uncollectibles or,
We are not. I don't know if Matt has anything to touch on that, but I think our uncollectibles are gonna be what they are.
we were in hopes that that was gonna hopefully maybe help
Reduce it.
people to reduce
Well,
that.
because we've only just begun the disconnections,
Oh, that's right.
it
Since we
really,
instituted this.
so we need to let it go through the summer and the fall to really kind of compare.
And I'm sorry, what was the additional revenue for the convenience fees?
It would be 4% of that 200,000, so $8,000.
Well, we don't collect the
Right.
It goes to,
fee.
That's a straight pass through.
okay, never mind.
Yeah, that's a straight pass.
Hydro facility update?
So Kesslin Dam, I provided a report to you in the packet. Kesslin is running. I'm gonna give a brief overview. It failed November 1st. Then we, after the failure, Wayne shut down, put the fire out, Kevin locked out, tagged out the transformer so no power could get to the unit. Main Industrial came out mid-November to assess. They suggested potentially a rewind. They raised the possibility of cutting the damaged coils out and bypassing to be able to regain generation. They were on site April 2nd and 3rd. They successfully removed the coils, the Megger testing, which tells the resistance on the windings. The Megger testing wasn't adequate, less than adequate to run. They got 3 megs that first test. They suggested tenting, heating, and dehumidifying the unit. Starting on April 4th through April 26th, we installed 2 15 kilowatt heaters under a tent fashioned around the generating unit. From April 4th to April 8th, we had an industrial dehumidifier inside the tent in addition to the heaters, and the industrial dehumidifier resumed service from 4/16 to 4/22. Friday at 4/16, Main Industrial returned for follow-up Megger testing. They reported 50 megs and told us we could attempt to run. So the 26th, 9 a.m., myself, Kevin Vizina, and Wayne Condon went to Kesslin at 9:30. Wayne performed a pre-startup evaluation. Everything was visually assessed. Before power was turned on, all the taps were reattached, everything was in place, everything was in working order. I directed Kevin Vizina to untag and unlock the generator. He reported back at 9:45 he had done that, and Wayne began the startup procedure following the protocols of what you need to check when to make sure that it's okay to run. Kesslin unit successfully resumed operations at 5/10 on Friday, 4/26. The generator is currently producing 100 kilowatts as opposed to 118 kilowatts prior to the event. The 110 kilowatts currently may be because the floodgates open, so we're still waiting to see what that full capacity of the generator is. And as of, I wrote 2 o'clock today, but as of 3:30 when Wayne left, it's still running and everything is up and everything is humming smoothly. So Kesslin is now operating. Twine Mill, I've located a company that rents underwater drones. It's a submarine. So prior to doing a drawdown, we want to visually inspect whether or not there's something lodged in there. Scott Ducharme has mulled it over. Peter's still mulling it over. Peter and I went over the plans, the schematics last week. We met and were there about an hour, Peter. We were in there. I had some ideas of what could be wrong. Scott had some ideas of what could be wrong. Peter just kind of listened to everything we said. Peter's thinking about what he thinks it might be, but we're going to first and foremost get a visual inspection of whether there's something stuck in the intake. Once we've been able to either confirm or eliminate that there's anything in there, we'll move on to other procedures. So Twine Mill is not operating at the moment. Dane Perkins is operating. It has been since we last reported. Today we had, starts with a P, I don't know, we hired a firm out of Sanford, Pomerleau Brothers. They actually have a cherry picker, which is a log truck, but their cherry picker is attached to the rear of the truck. We had all the debris cleared out. There was a large tree, Albert's seen it. There was a large tree that was stuck there that's still stuck there because the root ball, the entirety of the root ball is stuck to it as well, and it was either flip the truck into the river or let go of it. So that tree is still there. We've got boards now that need to be replaced. When the water level comes down, we'll cut that tree, then replace the boards. We're still generating. Nothing happened, but all of the debris other than that one tree is gone. That root ball, Wayne, I didn't see it. Wayne said the root ball on the tree was taller than he was, and it's a good size. From the pictures I saw, it's a pine tree. I didn't go down and inspect, but it looked like a pine tree. It's a big sucker, and it decided it wanted to be a log and wants to rest on our dam. So everything else is cleared out. They cleared as low as they could. They went down into the water by the trash racks to make sure there was no debris in there, nothing in there. So everything at Dane Perkins is up and running.
Anyone from the board have any questions on that?
I do have a couple of quick updates that I forgot to add. The act to allow a municipality to choose its power provider. This came up when when I first started here, Wayne Perry had introduced this bill. Seth Berry is introducing the Maine Power Delivery Authority, which would make one big consumer owned with the exceptions of the currently existing consumer owns. This is kind of two parts. So in regard to the main power delivery authority, we are assuring that we retain that exemption, that they can't take us over. We've been led to believe, but we're trust but verify, been led to believe that that's not going anywhere, but we want to keep it there. So that's something that we're keeping a very close eye on. I'll be in Augusta whenever they announce that we need to be there to testify that, yes, we do need to retain that if it should get to that point. Within the next few weeks,
I'm sorry, retain our independence, is that what you're talking
retain the prohibition that Maine Power Development Delivery Authority cannot take over the consumer loans that already exist.
Okay.
This is specifically
Assuming they
related to
take
the
over the
investor
investor
loans.
loan.
Yes.
Okay.
This other bill, I think Seth, I really think Representative Berry wants my seal of approval on the Power Delivery Authority. So he's reintroduced the bill that Wayne Perry had introduced, that actually was introduced by Bob Foley, that would give the municipality the ability to vote on who provides power. So Kennebunk at town meeting could vote that they want CMP out of the beaches. Wells could vote that they want us to cover their entirety of their town. Lyman and Arundel could do the same. I'm in no way saying that we're ready to do that, because that would be a big commitment from KLPD.
We'd still have to go and purchase CMP's assets.
Exactly, and this is only really, I think it's only really a viable option should the Power Delivery Authority become a reality.
Because it's the same thing as we've been working with.
Ridiculous astronomical fees that they think that
They can't force CMP to.
sell anything. So
So what does it do then? It can require a sale, but it doesn't force a price, or? I don't understand.
Well, see, this one is kind of one that was, I think, thrown in by Wayne, not completely thought through. If the town said,
not unusual.
so the town could vote and say, yes, we want KLPD. In the event that that happens, then we'd have to go to CMP for the valuation of their assets. We'd have to hire an appraiser and come up, if we can't come to an agreement, the PUC will adjudicate it. We've never
So
gotten
it
to
would
that
force a
point.
sale?
It could force a sale, yes.
Okay. I mean, that's what we've been asking for a while, is that the authorization that we got
From C.
7 or 8 years, whatever, years ago,
Yep.
didn't require them to come to the table. So
Exactly.
this would do that.
Yep.
And as management, are you supportive of this? That we,
I am supportive of it so long as it's not thrown at us all at once. So,
Right, if all 4 towns decided that. oh,
Yeah.
we'd have to hire 3 whole new crews and,
so we wouldn't have any control over it. If the towns voted on it, then we'd have to do it.
no, we wouldn't have to. We could say we can't do it, or we could say Central Maine Power won't work, we can't
Yeah.
afford those costs. It's just kind of, this one is more of a ceremonial blessing from the town that, yes, we want you guys. And then that would prompt us to go to Central Maine Power and say, Town Wells wants us, what's it gonna cost? And then we have the assets valued, we don't agree, we do agree, we go to the PUC and say, well, here's what we think it's worth, CMP says, here's what we think it's worth. If it got that far, we come to an agreement and then we own the
And
assets,
who pays?
our ratepayers.
We'd have to bond it.
We would have to bond it,
And if we didn't have enough bonding authority?
we wouldn't go any further.
Okay.
Well, if we didn't have enough bonding authority, we could go back to the town, ask to increase our bonding capacity, then we could turn around and bond additional.
So it's another step forward down
It
the
is.
path that many of our ratepayers would like.
Yeah, and there's been a resurgence, every time something happens in CMP land. People want it. That's,
So how do we support, how could we support, I'd like to see us support this as a board, and I'd like to, if it needs tweaks, to be a little less ceremonial. I'd like to, it's gonna be in a committee, I assume?
Yes.
PUT?
the board could vote to support the iteration of the latest iteration of LD 796, which would give me the ability to go to Augusta when they have a hearing on it and say KLPD board is unanimously in favor or is in favor of this proposal. And I think that would help. There's a
An
different,
opportunity to comment if
Yes.
it isn't what you,
Right.
exactly what you think, I guess.
absolutely. And, there's differing opinions in Dorigo, which is the group that we are all members of. Eastern Maine Electric Co-op serves 1,100 line miles, I think. I don't remember if Scott told me 38 or 40 different communities that they serve up there. they don't like this because I think they're afraid they'd lose some of their territory to Emera or whoever is served up there. It gives them heartburn every time you talk about it. For us,
Because the
it's-
towns might choose Emera.
Exactly, as opposed to
Because
us.
they're not,
They might not.
I think
be.
it adds a little competition to the marketplace, doesn't it?
exactly.
So,
So I think we should make that motion.
okay,
I would maybe make that motion that we support LD 796 and authorize the general manager to represent us there and help to improve the bill.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous?
all right,
Good luck.
thank you. Do what I can.
You said you had a couple of things, was that the couple?
Those were the couple of things, yes.
Did you have anything else to report?
That's good.
That is all.
Okay. Public comment period.
Oh, I'm sorry. This other bill?
Yes.
The Seth Berry bill that would,
Power Delivery Authority?
yeah. I just want to make sure I'm clear. You don't need any action from us because your main concern as our general manager is that we retain our authority.
That is correct.
Okay.
The board could, vote to confirm that, but I think it would be a moot. We want to keep running.
Sure. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's fine. Peter?
Okay, to continue what Todd said about Twine Mill, that print has something like 24 or more relays in it, and it's an somewhat elderly machine. The situation is that with a stuck valve and not wishing to cause undue concern over Todd's part, I refrained from asking him to go, that I would like to go down and look at the relays, this stuff. So the switches that are on the stem of the butterfly valve tell the logic what's going on from the butterfly valve point of view. Being stuck, I'm not sure exactly which position it is. We won't know until later on in the investigation. So I went through the print, and the one print is the logic and everything, and that's a revision 3, and the other one is the power end of it, and it's a revision 4. Going back through the records, Albert and I spent, 40 minutes. We were 10 minutes over here digging out these prints from the Alice Chalmers. In the Alice Chalmers report, I noticed that there's tabs that lead you through the whole thing. A couple of those Todd copies for us, and I found out that parts of them were in error because they had been deleted, parts have been deleted because of following revisions. So we need kind of like a real organization of that. The pressures that are used to run the governor and the butterfly valve together only differ by 50 pounds. And it's, almost 40 years old. So I'm not sure how much fatigue is in the bellows of those sensors, etc. And we're not positive about the gauge readings. So that needs to be investigated. They removed what they call the CR6 at one time, which was operating in conjunction with the valve, and they let the micro switch do the whole thing, hence my nervousness about actually asking Todd, so I didn't. And okay, so the bottom line is a lot of skull session has to ensue. Okay, so now if in fact we have to somehow dewater the thing, and we all know there was a little bit of water coming down the river, the problem becomes the head gate, and Albert's taken some photographs of it and some measurements of it and the design of it, etc. And it's being held up by a shackle and a chain, and to lower it, oxyacetylene cutting torch would probably be used, and it would go down at some speed until it stopped. wherever. I've done some calculations. We need a chain fall of about 2.5 tons, plus some other extraneous conversations with Todd and Albert on that. That would allow us to allow the power company to operate the gate with its own personnel. The only other thing is that when the whole thing's filled with water, and then you dump the water, then you've got the maximum pressure on the gate, which is somewhere around 6 tons. And so with a coefficient of friction, you ain't gonna lift that thing, see, until you balance the pressure after the valve is closed. So there's a little gate at Kesslin that you open up to balance the pressure so that you can open that gate. And so what we're proposing is to produce a similar gate on Twine Mill, so it can be opened and flood the area and then lift the gate easily. You can't push the gate down with a chain fall, so that's of course going to be under discussion for the future. And we know that the floodgate at Dane Perkins has in the past created a little bit of a problem for everybody. The normal gate operating mechanism for a simple gate, it looks like this. It's produced by a company that has been in business since the 1800s. It's a worldwide company. And I've been on the phone with the parts department, and they said that every once in a while they'll have a second-hand one somewhere that can be refurbished. So that might reduce the cost, or we can use a hydraulic gate. This is the one I built way back originally that opens and closes the floodgate on the end of it. So it's all a work in progress, but to get in there and do something with that valve, I'm afraid after we analyze it completely that we're going to have to do something with the gate, that head gate. Now, here's another opportunity.
Peter,
If you,
can I just interrupt you for a second? You're halfway through the 15-minute public comment, so I just want to make sure that
well, this is the most important part.
Okay, so you almost to the end?
Almost.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure everyone else has an opportunity to talk if they want.
Okay. Oh, this almost is 210,000 kilowatt hours a year for the light company. The blade pin on the turbine there is stuck. One of them is stuck, and about a year ago I talked with Ron Rule about getting some people lined up to come down. This never happened. So the summer is coming ahead of us. So we need to have a discussion with the board pretty soon to line everything up to see about whether Ron can get those people to come down here and free that pin up. Because when you free it up, you're going to go from 191 kilowatts to 300 kilowatts on the machine, and in the 90-day spring runoff period it means 210,000 kilowatt hours of power. End.
Perfect. So I'm sure you're working with Todd on all this, and so Todd will bring it back to us when, but thank you for the update.
When we get done fighting about the cost of the 210,000 kilowatt hours versus the cost of doing the repairs, we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Yes,
It's
Peter and I
just
have
one
been having
little
very
pin.
good. And Peter, we found a crane, so if that needs to be an option, we have a crane.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Albert?
I wanted to share with you a power purchase agreement that includes America First Hydro, and I've met with David and Todd and Matt.
Is that the one that?
Yeah, that
That
is.
you gave me?
This is actually the latest, smoothest, I hope clearest. I'm not going to give you one. Only because I didn't make enough copies.
Matt gets shafted.
This is the narrative of how you can see, and I'm keeping one so I can see it with you. Okay? And this is the spreadsheet. And this was interesting to do because the Wright-Pierce numbers are being used wherever we can, and wherever we had better numbers, we substituted them. The red that you see is the numbers that were not included, because what we're doing here is looking at this over a 10-year period. Good, I do have an extra one. And, all right. So the first point I wanted to make is that the power purchase agreement with America First Hydro does not need town involvement because it's a contractual relationship between KLPD and America First Hydro in a very simple, straightforward way. The bold number that you see at the beginning of the comment refers to the line item on the spreadsheet. For alternative 8, America First Hydro proposes power purchase agreement with KLPD owning the dams. And I used the October 18th proposal from America First Hydro in the spreadsheet. What you see in yellow is basically KLPD, and in pink or salmon color is what belongs to America First Hydro. The first point I want to make is line item number 39. If you go to 39, you see that with the power purchase agreement, America First Hydro takes on all costs for the FERC license application. Okay, line item number 34, I'm trying to make it 5 minutes, okay? Line item number 34, America First Hydro takes on all the capital maintenance generating equipment costs. And you can see it on the line item 34. Then number 3, FERC requires KLPD to keep the dams in a safe condition through the current license. I think Todd has just sent in a notice to FERC on what we're doing or something like that?
No, that was sent in November, Albert. It's just that FERC just got around to
Oh, that's interesting.
emailing it through the listserv.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what did I do now? Or what did I, and then I
Yeah.
reviewed it and it was
FERC
just,
is amazing, to say the least.
amazing is a good way to put it.
Right. Number 4, America First Hydro requires the hydropower to be operational for contracting a power purchase agreement. This is again in their October 18th proposal. Number 15, the Wright-Pierce capital maintenance for generating equipment costs, KLPD budget, is allocated at $25,000. Okay, did I read also that number 14, the Wright-Pierce dam maintenance costs, again, a KLPD budget, if it's less, fine. But over 10 years allocates $175,000 for dam maintenance. Point number 5, line item 21. Over 10 years, KLPD costs to maintain the dams is estimated at $240,000. That's a budget using the Wright-Pierce numbers. If it's less, fine. But it's interesting to see that when we go to line item number 7, point number 24 is America First Hydro projects 1,500,000 kilowatt hours per year. And dam maintenance revenue is directly related to the amount of kilowatt hours generated because, line item 46, KLPD's revenue comes from the residential KLPD delivery at 0.020598 times the number of kilowatts generated. Okay, line item number 25, if you look at that, the more kilowatt hours America First Hydro generates, the higher the KLPD return from the residential KLPD delivery. And it's interesting, I can change any of these green squares in the spreadsheet, and it changes the numbers throughout the chart. So that I was able, for example, to change line item number 22 at $95 per million kilowatt hours, which was in the proposal from America First Hydro, to something else. Surprisingly enough, it doesn't change line item 29 the net revenue for dam maintenance because it's still related to the kilowatt hours generated, which generates the residential KLPD delivery. It's only when you change the number of kilowatts that that number reduces. What's interesting is that this proposal of America First Hydro at $95 per million kilowatts actually has a payback in 7 3/4 years. I just put a few numbers at the very bottom. KLPD total one-year district ratepayer needed electricity, this is from Todd, is 112 million kilowatt hours. Solar one-year projected electricity is 3,945,000, or 3.5% of the needed electricity. Hydro, that's line item number 24, America First Hydro, one-year projected electricity, 1,500,000, or 1.3% of the needed electricity. And NextEra provides the remaining needed electricity, that's 95.2% of the district electrical needs. At just one point, March seems to be the greatest amount of water that you get in a year because of the spring run. And the least amount is in actually September or August. And that's why Peter and I are working to try and solve Twine Mill, because it provides half the electricity of all of our hydro production. So if we can solve it before we need a drawdown, this year might be difficult for a drawdown because it's the greatest snowfall that we've had and the greatest rainfall in spring. That's the end of it. And I'm not going to be working on this anymore, so.
Okay, sorry.
Is this working spreadsheet available to the management team here?
Absolutely, and if they want to change numbers, I'm happy to do so. I'll be happy to update it every year so that we actually see what's.
So I'm sorry, the question is, did they have it in Excel format?
No, they do
Not
not.
yet.
Are you going to provide it?
I
Of
could.
course, you will.
What's that? Oh, yeah, free. I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Berry. I live out in West Kennebunk, and I just wanted to commend the board for your efforts to bring the solar array into being. And I would encourage, and it sounds like with your goal statements from earlier, that you're going to be hopefully working to expand that as one of your ideas, and I would strongly encourage that and would welcome that. And I'm wondering, are there any preliminary plans along further, like power line tracks to do any expansion, or is that still on the drawing board, or
Wow.
where are you with that?
If you don't, I can answer that.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
So the initial one was kind of a test facility for us to look, for me and the crew to learn how the process worked, how it was going to integrate into our system, try to kind of work out the bugs. Now that we've realized we have what we have, we can improve on some of the ways that they were done. We've already identified additional parcels that we could develop. I've actually been contacted by one fairly large property owner end of last week that is interested in working a deal with KLPD potentially on 60 acres that is actually within striking distance of our substation where we could actually utilize it. So this is something that the board has expressed interest in expansion, and we have the ability to do that. So we're actively looking at options to see how much more solar we can bring in.
Great, glad to hear.
Anything else, Mr. Berry?
Nothing.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public? Yes.
Yeah, I just was concerned, I wanted to reiterate Peter's concern about the PIN. I think we all know that certain times of year, like now, how difficult it can be to get certain tradesmen, like plumbers, electricians, etc. And I think, something like the PIN he's talking about sounds like a sizable increase in the output of electricity. Can we get a ballpark? Is that like $1,000, a few $1,000s? Any idea what that expenditure is?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
It's kind of one of those, once they open it up, hopefully nothing else breaks. And
Right.
time and material, I think, is what that'll end up being.
Okay, and then my other question was regarding Kesslin, at what percent of theoretical output or capacity is it running, or are there any other tweaks that can be done, given the condition of the equipment, the age and all? Where is it at?
Right now, it's at about 96% of where it was before. So the output of the generator was at 118 kilowatt, now it's about 110. We're not sure if that's max because we have the floodgate that's slightly open. Once that floodgate's been closed, we'll know. But they told, Maine Industrial had told us to anticipate somewhere between 5 and 10% reduction, and that's pretty much what we've experienced.
Okay, but where has
we'll
it
keep an eye on
been
it.
historically, the dam, roughly?
Well, I'm talking about instantaneous generation.
Okay.
It's a 5% reduction in what it'll produce at any given moment. So if we had an exact, let's say we pulled a year 2012 and we replicated every condition that existed to generate exactly as many kilowatt hours, we'd be about 5% below where we were then.
Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you all.
Duffy, we don't need 11. I don't know where that came from. It was on another cut paste and
Okay.
it never went away. That's quite old.
Next meeting, May 28th, June 25th, and July 30th. Those dates are still good with everyone?
Of course they are with me.
Board recommendations for any agenda items for next meeting? Does anyone have anything they need to add to the list? Hearing none? Accept a motion to adjourn. Anyone want to adjourn?
Wow. Bob, motion to adjourn?
Yeah, so moved.
That's the biggest pause I've had. Seriously?
You put asphalt on here, because that wasn't on here.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
See how they do it.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.